motion, then you'd want to turn on a checkbox called Remove Ghosts. And that would compare the images, and if there was any great difference between them, it would try to compensate for the motion by preventing you from having little ghosted areas. In this image, I don't think there's any motion, so I'll leave that turned off. Now I'm going to click the OK button. And it's creating a special file that's in 32-bit mode. It's not a file that you use for most things. Instead, it's a file that needs to be processed. We could have processed it right here in Photoshop, but we want to do it in Lightroom because I think the results are better and it's easier to understand what the sliders do. Once it gets to this point where I'm in Photoshop and it's just showing me the preview, all I'm going to do is choose Save. Not Save As, where you type in a name, just plain old Save. Since Lightroom opened these images from a menu within Lightroom, it's smart enough to know that if I choose Save, it should save it in TIFF file format because that's what Lightroom is set to. And because I created it or started in Lightroom, it should automatically import it back into Lightroom. Right now I don't see my file name, so it's hard for me to tell if it's here. I'm going to turn on my file names. Just so you know, if you want to see your file names around your images, go to the View menu, and you have the choice of View Options. And right now we're on compact cells, so we can expand them. And okay, they are up there. Just want to make sure I have it in here and that I'm working on the proper file. So I have some raw files in here that I originally merged, but this one right here I can tell is the one that just got created because if I look closely at it, I can see it's a TIFF file, whereas this one over here is a RAW file. Canon RAW files end in CR2, whereas this is our TIFF. So that's the file I want to optimize. It just got created in here automatically. I'm going to press the letter D to go to Develop, and I'm just going to optimize it and see what I can get out of it. Bring up the shadow, see if I can get some detail out of that. Maybe darken my highlights a little bit. Might bring the exposure up to just get even more out of it. Bring my highlights back down. All depends how much detail you want in this area. No clarity. Okay, let's say something about like that. Now let's look at the same portion of the image down in here. Remember where we saw a lot of noise previously? I'm not absolutely certain that there's going to be no noise there, but there's a much greater chance because one of the exposures that I fed Photoshop was much brighter in that area. And as you get into brighter and brighter areas, there's less and less noise. So if it used that part, then down here, this should look much cleaner. I'll brighten the image up just like I did before to make that even brighter. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but I think that is a bit cleaner. Before it was a lot more noisy. I do see the texture of this, and I do see a little bit of noise, but I think it was much more pronounced on the other one. So let me just fine-tune that so I like it. And then I'm going to hit G to go back to the grid. So now we can see two images side by side. So move them over here. Okay. First, this one, which is an HDR image, meaning it was 3 exposures that we merged together with Photoshop and then processed in Lightroom. Then this image is the same image, but created from a single file. And visually, they don't necessarily look all that different. Oops. And I could have possibly adjusted them differently. This one's a little bit darker. Maybe I go back to Develop, just brighten it up a little bit to make it look more like the others. So they're closer to matching. Now let's see. I'll put it in survey mode so you can see them side by side. And so one is a merged HDR, the other is a single file. Let's see if we can see it when we look at the image zoomed up. Okay, just got to wait for it to load. All right, this one, if I look in here, and I don't know how well this will come across in the compressed video that's going out on the